You know what they say? Every ending is also a new beginning. So while we may be giving rest to one conversation, we are about to begin another unforgettable one. And in the words of our next guest, the journey is not yet done. The best is yet to come. Of course it is. For there are stories he must tell and stories we must listen to. और क्योंकि कहानियों की बात है तो शुरुआत एक शेर से तो करनी पड़ेगी. कहा है कि वो चांद है तो अक्स भी पानी में आएगा. वो चांद है तो अक्स भी पानी में आएगा. किरदार खुद भर कर कहानी में आएगा. वक्त है उस किरदार को आगे लाने का. There is going to be every touch of originality in this conversation because the personality we are due to meet next is considered as the original crossover Indian actor with a path-breaking career and an unconventional life. From starting out in Hindi films to traversing Bollywood, to tasting great success in Europe, we've loved him, we've admired him, and perhaps we've even been a little scared of him when he played the villain in the James Bond film Octopussy. And I personally remember Khoon Bhari Maang. I was very scared of that at that point of time. Also, how could I miss mentioning his greatest success in Europe, Sandokan? And it's been a delight to watch him in The Bold and the Beautiful, one of the world's most watched, loved soap operas. But perhaps what I should have mentioned first and foremost is that Italy has bestowed him with its highest civilian honor, the Cavaliere. Ladies and gentlemen, with a huge, huge round of applause, let's welcome Mr. Kabir Bedi. कहा है कि चांद भी है हैरान, दरिया भी परेशानी में है, अक्स किसका है कि इतनी रोशनी पानी में है. And now I must introduce to you our moderator, one of the prominent poets of contemporary India. I recommend you should get your hands on her collection of Hindustani poems, Lamho Ki Shabnam, if you haven't already. Or Waqt Ki Ujale Mein, which was conferred the Best Poetry Collection Award in 2017 by the Chandigarh Sahitya Academy. A senior administrator of the Indian Administrative Services, we've seen her effortlessly handling prestigious portfolios, both in the centre and the Haryana state governments. Her current role being Additional Chief Secretary, Haryana. Ladies and gentlemen, let's also extend a heartfelt welcome for the founder chairperson of Chandigarh Literary Society and our festival director and curator, Dr. Sumita Mishra. All yours, ma'am, all yours.
Morning, friends. And morning, sir.
Morning.
We've just heard, I think, a very profound yet humble and funny insight into the world of writing from Ashwin Sanghi ji. Kabir ji, your book is called Stories I Must Tell. So my first question is, why must? Because, no, let me add before that, I was surprised at the book because it's a very deeply contemplative book. It's a book that dives much beyond the glitz and glamour of filmdom. It's really a very honest mirror to your psyche, to your life. But why must?
Many reasons. Firstly, hello to everybody here in Chandigarh. Delighted to be here. And thank you, Sumata ji, for agreeing to interview me. And I also want to commend, before I begin, the festival director, Afran, for organizing this wonderful Literati festival. And I also want to, before beginning, acknowledge and salute the speech made by my friend Ashwin Sanghi. It was brilliant, well thought out, wonderfully constructed, and illuminating. It was, in his words, what he seeks to do, entertain, educate, and enlighten. Thank you so much, Ashwin. You really made our morning with a very thought-provoking and wonderful speech. Thank you for that. Now, with respect to my own book, you know, Sumita, what's my story really? My story is the story of a boy Punjabi boy from Delhi, who goes to Bombay and without even planning or wanting to be an actor professionally, enters Bollywood, goes on to becoming a major star in Europe, goes on to Hollywood, with many extraordinary relationships along the way, many triumphs, tragedies, milestones, mistakes. But my problem was when you have a graph of 3 continents, 3 film industries, countless films, extraordinary people met, extraordinary relationships, etc. How do I tell my story in less than 700 pages? And nobody reads 700 pages books anymore. I mean, there might be a few, but a fast dying breed. So this dilemma actually prevented me from writing the book for many, many years. I couldn't figure out how to tell my story in a way that would be easy for people to absorb and yet have my story. Eventually, I figured it out. And I sort of wrote my book as a series of short stories. So it's not written in a linear way. Each story goes back and forth in time.
In fact, that was going to be my next question. So you've already taken that up. Yes.
Yeah. So it was a way of telling my essential stories that I must tell, which taken together form the story of my life, give the essence of my life, the most important moments of my life. And so it's not all the stories I can tell, but the stories that I must tell.
I think that's a very insightful answer. You were born in Lahore around partition time. Your father was a revered philosopher and freedom fighter. Your mother herself, a very progressive and a very well-known Buddhist nun. Not nun, Buddhist.
She was a nun, the highest ranking nun in the world, yeah.
I studied in a convent, so for me, nun has certain connotations which I thought would not apply here. So what were their influences on you? And you're in Chandigarh, so do you feel a special connect to Punjab since you are by lineage a Punjabi and a Sikh?
You know, I was born in Lahore, which is the capital of undivided Punjab. And here I am talking about my life, my memories, my reminiscences, my story in the new capital of Punjab in India. So it's almost like completing the circle in the capitals of Punjab. And there's been a very deep connection with Punjab, not so much in terms of time spent in Punjab, but the emotional connect. To paraphrase a very famous writer, you can take a Punjabi out of Punjab, but you can't take the Punjabi out of the Punjabi, you know?
Yeah.
So you can't take Punjab out of the Punjabi. So, of course, like I said, I was born in Punjab, and my parents became freedom fighters. My mother was a Gandhian, and one of our most publicized and public acts was leading, at Gandhi's special request, Satyagraha in our hometown in Punjab, Dera Baba Nanak, in 1942. And my father was much more the agitator, the communist, the rabble-rouser, the chap who organized strikes. And he was also, like my mother, sent to jail for their role in the freedom struggle. But they were deeply, deeply Punjabi. My father, in fact, translated the Zafarnama into English. He wrote a book on Guru Baba Nanak. And even though he became a very original philosopher and became very famous in Italy, and he got there before I got there, in his deepest sense, the essence of Sikhism never left him, because that's universal. That's the purity of the Sikh beliefs and faiths and service to others and belief in the union of the divine and equality and all the most beautiful things about Sikhism remained as part of his philosophy. He never renounced that or denounced that. He propagated that. Punjab has therefore been a very special part of my upbringing. And wherever I have traveled in the world, what has always delighted me is meeting Punjabis. And in California especially, there's a whole tribe of Punjabis that were pioneers in immigration. And today in Italy also, when I think about it, is almost 500,000 Punjabis in Italy who actually run the entire milk industry. It's their hand that creates your mozzarella, your cheese, your all the milk products possible, because they went there it's a long story of how they all got there. They came through Yugoslavia where Indians could go without visas. And then the Italians loved their work so much that they kept saying, call more of your family. And they all kept coming. And today there's a huge population. So it gives me great pride to be Punjabi and to see the success of Punjabis abroad and to feel the Punjabi essence in me. And whenever I go to the Golden Temple, and I've written about this in my book as well, it is a deeply, deeply spiritual experience for me. There is a sense of homecoming when I'm sitting in the Darbar Sahib listening to the wonderful artis being sung and the ardas. It's just absolutely marvelous. So that connection of Punjab in me is very strong. And as I said, this is a story of a Punjabi boy who went abroad and made good.
Yes. The year is 1966. We just heard a Beatles reference to a song written in 1966. But there's a 20-year-old boy who pulls off a huge journalistic coup and gets an interview with the Beatles while they're in India. Can you tell us about that boy and how he did it?
You know, as I mentioned, my parents were freedom fighters. They were Oxford-educated people. They came back to India, gave it all up, all the possibilities of the best jobs in country, to fight for India's independence. The place we lived in Lahore was called the Huts, and all these leftist revolutionaries would gather there. It was a kind of adda. I'm digressing a bit, but it's important to understand the background of this. And all these people like Gyani Zail Singh would come, Inder Gujral would come. Not just come, they'd gather. Sheikh Abdullah would come, Hafiz Jalandhari, who became the poet laureate of Pakistan, he would come. Pran Chopra, who became editor of the Statesman, he would come. Khushwant Singh was there. So many, many people came. They were watched by the police, harassed by the police, etc. So, and we had literally huts because they had no money. They just constructed huts on a piece of land with a buffalo tethered for milk and no electricity, no running water. But this was their dedication. So the reason I mention this is that when I finished school, I had the marks to get into St. Stephen's College, but I didn't have the money to pay for it. Neither did they. So I had to start freelancing, and I started freelancing with All India Radio as one thing. And being a student of history at St. Stephen's, I also did tourist guiding on the side. So I would make money from guiding tourists around the monuments of Delhi. So when I was working with All India Radio, now I was the biggest Beatles fan in the world. And remember, this was the 60s.
Yes.
The 60s were a magical, magical decade. The world changed in that time. Cultures changed in that time. Music changed. Fashion changed. People were demonstrating for peace. And the Beatles were the symbol of it all. Not just great musicians. So when I heard the Beatles had come into town, I was determined to interview them. And I knew everything about the Beatles. So I went to my bosses and I said, I want to interview the Beatles. अरे तुम क्या करोगे इंटरव्यू पूरी प्रेस उनके पीछे पड़ी है आपको क्यों इंटरव्यू देंगे मैंने कहा देखिए आप मुझे टेप रिकॉर्डर दीजिए बिल्ला दीजिए मैं कोशिश करता हूँ अरे नहीं 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 आपका क्या जाता है दीजिए ना मुझे so I became very insistent because I wanted to see the Beatles. So they gave me the badge, they gave me the tape recorder, everything. I went to the Oberoi Intercontinental. All the press was there. The fans were held outside. Everyone was there looking for the Beatles. Somebody said, oh, they're going out by the kitchen. Everyone ran that way. I was looking for the manager. I knew that Brian Epstein was their manager. He was the guy I had to get hold of. So when I finally saw him, he was walking through the lobby towards his car. And I went to him and I had a plan. Because I'd heard that the Beatles had come to India because it was an unscheduled stop, because they'd run into trouble with the government of Philippines. Because the dictator at that time, Ferdinand Marcos, and his wife Imelda, after the concert of the Beatles in Philippines, had asked them to come to the palace to sing birthday songs for their children. And the Beatles naturally refused. So the wrath of the Marcoses descended on them. They literally were hounded out, manhandled at the airport, and they got on a plane, and Delhi was a pit stop on the way back. So having heard this through the grapevine, I went to him, I said, sir, I'm Kabir Bedi from All India Radio, the government's radio station, the biggest radio station in India. I didn't tell him it's the only radio station. The biggest radio station in India. The government have decided there's going to be an interview tonight at 10 o'clock with the Beatles. I said, what nonsense? The boys will not do any such thing. I said, sir, I'm a big fan of the Beatles. I understand, but if they don't, there'll be a big problem with the government, sir. And it will not be nice. I wouldn't like to see that. Absolutely nonsense. The boys will not do any interview. I said, sir, the government have announced it.
I'm seeing some friendly arm twisting there.
Right.
Government label.
So, so I knew the government was there, his vulnerability. So he said, no, I will do the bloody interview. I thought, great, Brian Epstein's good enough for me, good enough for Scoop. So I said, fine, sir. So I made arrangements. Hotel manager was with him. He arranged for me to go up to his room. When I went up to his room, I knocked on his door at the appointed hour. He opened it. He was in his dressing gown. He was sweating. I said, hello, sir, Kabir Bedi, All India Radio, interview, 10 o'clock, sir. He said, oh, God, I can't do this. So I said, sir, he said, just wait. Slammed the door in my face, I said, Mare guy. He opened the door, came out, tidied up slightly, caught my arm, walked me across the length of the floor to the suite at the other end of the floor, knocked on the door. Paul McCartney opened the door and he says, boys, do me a favor, give this chap an interview. And there I was, in with the Beatles. And it was absolutely marvelous to be there. Now, what I asked them, what I said to them, etc., is all in the book. I can't go into the whole thing given the time constraints.
So
But it was just like I died and gone to heaven, surrounded by the 4 Beatles, the biggest rock band in the world, and I had them all to myself. The only other chap in the room was the manager of British Airways who was talking some travel arrangements with them. And I got the interview. Shall I talk about the sequel or to this also?
No, I think you have to leave that for them to read in the book.
Okay.
We have to leave it.
Yes,
with the
but
appetite.
in a word, that was one of the reasons that caused me to leave Delhi and head for Bombay with 700 rupees in my pocket to seek a different destiny. Typical Punjabi.
So that just proves that fortune does favor the bold and the sharp thinking. You mentioned the 60s. You were one of the icons of the 60s and 70s, you know. Rock and roll era, hippies, free love, flower power, all that. What were those? Were they as hedonistic as is made out to us now? And do you wish you'd done anything differently back then?
You know, of course there were hedonistic times because it was a society in change. There was a kind of rigidness about society in the years that followed the World War. Things were far more structured, more militaristic, more macho, more male-oriented. And then suddenly came in the 60s, and there were the hippies, the pill was invented, so sexual freedom came into being. Music moved beyond the sounds of the big bands and great jazz and Elvis into new dimensions with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, the Pink Floyd. I mean, they were just Procol Harum. I mean, the sounds that came out reflected the new technologies.
Yes.
They reflected a whole new age. Never before had people demonstrated for peace.
Yes.
Never before did fashion become psychedelic. It was an era with change. So yes, there was hedonism was part of it because there was more freedom, more sexual freedom. But really it was as a society that was changing in the West and also in India because we wanted to be part of it. We also wanted society to change here. We wanted things to become more progressive. We wanted things to become less rigid. And which eventually, in my relationships in Bombay, led to other things, etc. But it was a time of great change, and I've written about that. Because my book is Stories I Must Tell. And these were the seminal stories, not only of me, but of the times in which I lived. And I think the 60s was certainly a symbol of the changes that took place, not just in my life, but in the century. The 60s, I think, were the seminal moment when society changed forever in ways whose impacts you still feel today with all the technology people that came out of it, with all the mind-expanding experiences they had, etc. So, yes, it was a time of great change, and I've written about that because I was part of it.
You've also written very candidly about the great loves of your life. So, and I'm trying to tread very delicately here. Uh, so, and of course, you have experienced, I'm sure, the emotion in various forms through your rich life. How do you define love now? And what do you feel about love and marriage, or love versus marriage? How do you perceive that?
That's a big question. Because love is like the word God. Everyone's got their own interpretation of what love is. And there's so many types of love, as we know. Parent, child, brother, friend, family. But in general, we talk about love between man and woman. And there again, each relationship is always utterly unique. Because nobody knows what happens between a man and a woman in a marriage or a relationship. Each is unique in its own special way. The woman that I married, Pratima, she was a go-go dancer. She used to dance with the bands when they sang all the new songs of the era. And we met, and we both were sort of children of flower power. We both wanted to be different, we wanted to be rebellious, we wanted to be this and that, which led to a lot of things. It led to great love, it led to marriage, it led to children, it led to experimentation, it led to traditional marriage that became an open marriage. And how that happens, that process of a traditional marriage becoming an open marriage, and the consequences of that, and the dangers of that, because in the end it didn't work. But those are things I've explored in my book, and with fair amount of raw honesty.
Yes, very much so.
Because I think people deserve to know that and feel
And with
that.
a sense of compassion, I thought, of compassion and
And
fairness.
yes, compassion. There has to be. Because we were in it together. We grew up together.
Yes.
It was a time of personal change, social change, the country was changing, the world was changing, and it created many painful dilemmas also. I read about it. But so that is one type of love. And I remained friends with Prathama for the rest of my life, even after we separated, even after we divorced, etc. We remained friends. We were buddies. We were soul buddies. Then there was Parveen. I went to Italy as a star, became a star in Italy, and Parveen came with me, and there was this incredible... And there I saw Beatlemania happening to me, which was, again, a very strange and wonderful experience. But also it created enormous tensions because in India, Parveen was a bigger star than I was. And she went to Italy, and suddenly she was being elbowed out by fans that just wanted a piece of me and didn't want anything to do with her. And this created enormous problems in the relationship. I remember, at the time, there were two greatest Italian actresses on the international stage. There was
Yes.
Sophia Loren
Gina.
and Gina Lollobrigida. And during the success of Time of Sandokan, we got invited by Gina Lollobrigida to dinner. And we were absolutely thrilled. This was, like dining with film royalty. So we went to this dinner with great expectation. The problem was, Gina, when she received us at her home, introduced me to everybody, said wonderful things about me, ignored Parveen. I could feel Parveen's temperature rising, but Gina was fawning all over me and her guests and all that. So I thought, anyway, the plan was to go to dinner afterwards. I thought it'll get better. It didn't. We went to dinner to this wonderful restaurant with the manager of Air India, Gina, Parveen and me. Beautiful restaurant, low lights, band is playing, people are dancing, kind of foxtrot kind of dancing on the floor. Maitre d's coming and giving their wine and their menus and all that. And Gina says, come, let's dance. So we go onto the floor, and one part of me is thinking, hey, I'm dancing with Gina Lollobrigida. This is incredible, man. Another is thinking, my God, what's Parveen thinking?
I'm in
She's
trouble.
not going to be happy.
Yes, I'm in deep trouble here.
I'm in deep trouble. So we danced, and she was thrilled to know that I knew her films and all that. And eventually I said, let's, after the number, let's get back to the dinner. People are waiting for dinner. Went there. Then Parveen said, let us dance. I said, of course. So I took her onto the floor. I realized she was tense. She was angry. So I tried to calm her down. I said, listen, don't worry about it. Gina is, she's older. You're far more beautiful than her. She's jealous of you. Think of it as a compliment. She said, don't try that on me, baby. I said, I said, it's Gina Laurel Brigida. We have to have a lovely evening with her, make the most of it. She said, don't try any of that. I'm leaving. I said, you're leaving the dance floor and going? She said, no, I'm leaving the restaurant. I said, you can't leave the restaurant. We can't walk out of dinner with Gina Laurel Brigida. She said, no, you do what you like. I'm leaving. I said, look, if you leave, then I have to leave. She said, you do what you want. I am leaving. And she started walking back to the table. And I had between here and there to figure out, am I going to stay with Gina Laurel Brigida or am I going to go with Parveen? And I'm thinking, what should I do? This moment won't come again, yet. And then I thought to myself, as Parveen started picking up her bag, I thought, Gina is a great star and I really should be kind to her and stay. But she did insult the woman that I love. And I have to take the side of the woman that I love and show my solidarity with her. So I bent down and said, Gina, I'm terribly sorry, but we have to go. I think you know why, but please forgive me. I have to go. And I left with Parveen. So that is, you asked about what love is. That's what love is.
Yes.
Where you walk out on the biggest star in the world because you insulted the woman you love. That's one definition of love. So
It very much is.
then there were other relations, my marriage in America, then my marriage to Nikki, who was my Desdemona when I played Othello with Alec Padamsee. And now I'm married to Parveen Dosanjh, who's Punjabi. We've been together for 18 years and married for 8 years. And I have a kind of relationship that I've been really looking for all these years. And that gives me great satisfaction. So love is something that I've always sought. Marriage is something I believe in, which is why I keep getting married, even though I keep paying alimonies. But at the end of the day, my quest for love, my quest for companionship has always been there. It's always been part of me. And I believe in love, and I believe in marriage. And hopefully, I've come to the final stop now.
I think all of us here wish you continued happiness and, a deepening love over the years.
Thank you. Thank you
Since
so
you
much.
so frankly and engagingly shared what must have been a very troublesome incident, and I think you really made the right call here. I think
Well-
that deserves a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, moving on, we
Thank you.
will do a short Q&A at the end. So, this is just an example. You heard it live, but if you read the book, it's like hearing Kabir Bedi Saab talk about things that happened with him. The year is 1974.
Okay.
Sandokan happens.
Yeah.
The Tiger of Malaya. Italy is a different country, culture, language. How did that happen?
It happened for a couple of reasons. I'd done a play with Alec Padamsee called Tughlaq, Girish Karnad's first play. And that became the rage in Bombay at the time. So I suddenly became very well known in Bombay in theatre circles. Various producers came to me. I signed a few. There's lots of very interesting incidents connected with the early films I signed, etc., which are in my book. But I had Kache Dhage was with Raj Khosla and Vinod Khanna was my first big hit. And there was one other, Nagin, which came a little later. But what I realized was that if I wanted to be a major star in India, I would have to sing and dance on screen. And I love watching song and dance on screen. I think nobody in the world does it better than Bollywood. Nobody. We're the best choreographers, the best writers, the best lyricists, the best musicians. We are the kings of song and dance on screen and how we integrate it into the narrative of films. But I didn't like doing it. I fancied myself more as a more serious actor. I didn't want to do that aspect of it. And I realized that if I don't want to do that, then to be an actor, I have to look further afield. So my antenna was already out looking for a way out to go abroad in some way. And then Sandokan is a story of an Asian hero, a pirate, who'd been dispossessed, came from a royal family, dispossessed, became a pirate, and fights for the freedom of his people. And falls in love with an English girl while fighting the British, creating all kinds of complications. And the Italians came to do a tour of 6 cities in Asia. And the first city they came to was Bombay. And when they came around, they said, we're looking for an actor who's tall, bearded, athletic. Everyone mentioned my name. So I met them. They liked me, but they said, will you come to Rome at your own expense to do an audition? Now here again, first I bristled. I'm not an unknown actor. I've got hit films. I'm a Bollywood name. And I thought, don't sit on your pride. This is going to get you. See the opportunity. You want to go abroad? This could be it. So I went at my expense, did the audition, all the horse riding, all the underwater scenes, all the love scenes, all the dramatic scenes, aced all that, got the role, and the rest, as they say, is history. But it's a question of, being able to recognize opportunity is one of the great gifts of life. Because opportunity doesn't come often saying, I'm opportunity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Opportunity can be something that somebody whispers to you at a party and think, hey, I could do that, and it'll change your life. So if you're open, if you know the direction you want to go and you sense an opportunity, it can come from anywhere. It would come from something that one child says to another, and suddenly it makes a connection in your mind, and you go in a different direction. These things can change your life. And the question, like Ashwin said, be open, and the story will come to you. Be open, and the opportunity will come to you. And that's one of the things that have always worked my life, that when I've kept my antennas open for the right move, right direction, knowing where I want to go, but looking to find a way, that awareness has given me that opening, given me that given me the springboard I needed to move on to the next thing. Because after the success of Italy, my success in Italy was actually a double-edged sword. I was so identified with the character of Sandokan. It became so iconic so quickly that no director in Italy could think of casting me for any other role. So I realized again I have to move beyond.
Italy now.
I have to move beyond Italy, prove to them that I'm a multifaceted actor, and then come back. And that's why I moved on to Hollywood.
Yes, that was my next question. You went on to Hollywood. You starred in one of the most popular soap operas of the time, Bold and Beautiful. But yet you said that Hollywood devastated you.
Hollywood devastated me in a number of ways. Yes, it got me the James Bond film, which gave me a worldwide fan base. Yes, it gave me The Bold and Beautiful, and many other big series. But the fact of the matter is that the biggest problem I faced in Hollywood was that they were not writing roles for Asians or Indians. And so, what do you do to survive as an actor? Fortunately, I was able to play different nationalities. And as long as I could play something foreign, it was fine by the Americans. So them anything beyond New York is foreign. So whether you're Indian or Spanish or Moroccan or German or Russian, it's all the same. You're a foreigner. So I sort of got into the groove of playing these foreigner roles. And that became my defense. But it wasn't a place I was happy. In fact, the only place I was really correctly cast was the James Bond film, where I played a Sikh. I played a Sardar. And that was me. That was who I am. And and that gave me great joy to be the first Indian actor to be in a James Bond film, shooting in India, in Udaipur, Lake Palace. Roger Moore to my left, the Kavi Broccoli family to my right, who started this longest running film franchise in history. John Glenn, the great director, behind all the Bond girls around us, like, whoa.
Where am I?
Where
Certainly
am I?
arrived.
Yes. It was one of those wow moments in your life. But the fact of the matter is, Hollywood devastated me for a number of other reasons. So, one is the difficulty of getting the right roles. Secondly, my marriage to Ishel, my American wife, did not go well. It caused me a lot of personal grief. It's also where I battled to save my son, because he was an extraordinarily bright young man. He was a graduate of Carnegie Mellon University, the mecca of infotech, at the dawn of the information age.
In fact, your book is dedicated to him.
My book is dedicated to him. And it was a struggle of a father trying to save his son from committing suicide. And I've written a chapter on that in my thing. And I think people should read it, because it's not just a story of schizophrenia and what that's about, but it's about what happens to the caregivers of people who are suffering mental illnesses. And I think that's equally important to understand, that sometimes the greatest suffering is those who are taking care of those with mental illnesses. Because people who are suffering mentally may suffer in a very, they're not suffering pain. They're suffering in a different kind of way. But the pain of caregivers is certainly no less and needs to be acknowledged. So many things, and then I made some disastrous investments. You know, I invested in Apple, it turned against me. I invested in what was the Google of the time, a company called Netscape, it went against me. I invested in gold, which had been down for so long, everyone said it had to go up, it went against me. And I'd leveraged these, so I was bankrupted by these financial reversals, not by lack of acting. Financial reversals based on bad investments. So all these things hit me very hard in Hollywood. And there came a point where I said to myself, you know, why am I here? Looking for roles that are not being written, seeking financial security in a country which has actually devastated me financially. Not for acting, I got fair money there, but I lost it all in these investments. Europe was my strength. India was my strength. And I started making the journey back, first to England, then to Italy, and finally I chose to live in India because this is the country I care about the most. I still work abroad, but... So America did devastate me in many ways. Hollywood did devastate me. And the last chapter of my book begins, Hollywood devastated me, India and Italy resurrected me.
Yes. You mentioned about your son Siddharth. And particularly how difficult it is or challenging it is for caregivers. What more can we do to support mental health, especially among young people? And what helped you cope or process with this this huge untimely loss?
You know, it's a big topic. Perhaps it needs a separate session on that. But I seem to feel that the rise of mental illnesses and problems is on the rise. And I think the COVID period has also led to a lot of depression among young people in particular. And because it dislocated so many lives, financially, emotionally, physically, health-wise. And that's really a topic for a far wider discussion. But the only thing I would say is that what should be battled, and really battled means tell people off if they do this, don't look down on people or speak badly of people that have children or relatives who are suffering from mental illness. Oh, ye pagal ho gaya hai. Pagal nahi ho gaya. There are physical illnesses, there are mental illnesses. Mental illnesses can also be cured or managed in the same way that physical illnesses are. is just another malady. It's just another malfunction of the system. So be compassionate towards those who are dealing with people with mental illnesses because they need your compassion more than your contempt.
I think that's very, very profound advice that we need to destigmatize and,
Absolutely.
and respect a mental health problem just like any other physical ailment.
Absolutely.
We're running out of time, but I have two more questions.
Tell me.
And the second last question I have is that what are the secrets of looking so good even now?
Well, thank you for the implied compliment. I appreciate that. Nice to be appreciated. Nice to be appreciated.
So some nuskas for us.
I firstly, obviously, you have to thank your parents and the universe for the way you look, because that's something which is parent given, God given, universe given, and I'm most grateful for that. You can, of course, build on it, try and improve it, and believe me, I'm not a great chap who works out relentlessly. No, I don't. I'm a very relatively lazy, but certain amount of exercise you have to do to keep fit, both as an actor and as also with age, to keep a certain mental flexibility. But I'll share with you a nuska that I do have. Nuska means this is what I do. I don't know if it works for you. Please talk to your own doctor. But I'm a great believer in the curative powers of haldi. And you must, if you're taking haldi, you must take it with black pepper and you must take it with oil for absorption. Black pepper increases the effect. Oil helps the body absorb it. Take it with a little honey and mix it around. It's like, you can have it like jam. I discovered this because I was a smoker. And I thought, okay, I'm a smoker. What can I do to counter the effects of smoking? And I discovered haldi is the single best plant on the planet as far as antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, everything you can imagine. And to this I add other things also. I had some ginger powder or raw ginger. I had garlic. I had.
So do you have this in the morning or the evening or when?
I have found by practice it's better to take this in the evening
Okay.
because it helps me get a better sleep also.
So like after dinner.
Yeah, after dinner or before dinner, but have it in the evening because it helps give me a better sleep, I've noticed. So, but I do believe, and you know, crushed garlic, if you crush garlic, leave it for 10 minutes and then have it. There's something that happens in the chemical reaction, etc. Those things are very life-giving. So, I don't know, I don't think it can do you much harm, but can, in my experience, do you a lot of good. And it certainly helped my energy levels. It certainly helped me reduce or even eliminate the number of colds I get. And it's been very useful for me. For that reason, I choose to share it, but please talk to your doctor. I have found great benefit from the use of haldi every day with black pepper
So
and
friends,
oil.
you know शाम को क्या करना है अब, okay?
शाम को खाइए,
वो गोल बनाइए और खाइए.
आपकी
Okay.
जिंदगी बदल जाएगी और आराम की नींद भी मिलेगी आपको.
Last question. You've led such an unconventional life, so diverse, such a rich tapestry. Independent, risk taker. You've admitted to some of the wrong risks you took.
Oh, big time! I've admitted all my mistakes. You know, for instance, one of the things in my book, the thing was, who do I talk about? Who do I name, etc. I have talked very honestly, very in great depth about my publicly known relationships.
Yeah.
There are other relationships I've had in my life, which I admit that I had, say, in a marriage, I said, yes, I was unfaithful and I was wrong, etc. But I have not named that person because they are not public people. And you don't have any right to know who they are. You need to know that I was wrong in what I did, which I admit. But they're leading their own lives, they have their own husbands, they own their families. Why should I ruin their lives to be truthful in my book? I don't feel that is right. So I have protected the names of people, but not the facts of what I did.
Well, that's the gentlemanly thing to do.
What was the larger question?
Yes, the last question is, so you've had this big, larger than life life.
Right.
You've literally seen it all. So what's the one piece of advice you'd give? One thing to do and one thing not to do. If you were to give it as advice to two people here.
They can't hear you.
one thing to do or one thing not to do based on your own life experiences as your sort of life mantra or advice? Just one. You can tell us more also if you want.
You know, it's hard to pick one thing to do, but basically, one thing not to do is don't trust people easily,
Oh,
because trust should be earned. Don't just give it
Well
to people
said.
because they're related to you or because they are
Very
friends
well
of yours,
said.
etc. Trust has to be earned. Don't trust people easily. Test, be sure, and then trust. Two things I'd like to say. One is, irrespective of what your profession is or what you're doing to make a living, never lose touch with your creative self. Because all of us have creative selves, whether we sing or paint or even appreciate the arts or appreciate books. Never lose touch with your creative self. And secondly, don't be afraid of taking uncharted paths. And don't dissuade others that want to take uncharted paths, because each have their own journey. And if they want to take that chance, follow that thing, and it's something that makes their heart sing, don't prevent that. And if it makes your heart sing, find a way in which you can do what you love to do. That's what I say to you.
thank you. I think that's straight from the heart,
There's-
and that brings us back to literati, which is why we're doing something creative to keep that creative
Right.
part that energizes one alive.
There's one quote that I read, so I won't take credit for it, but it said, think about what you love to do, and then think about what you have to do what you love to do.
Yes, absolutely. It resonates with what Ashwinji also said, that you need to find the time to do what you love to do, but you need the resources that enable you to do what you love.
So then you have to find the resources to do what you have
Exactly.
to
So
do.
you have to
So
create those
that's
resources.
a way of finding the
Thank
road.
you very much. I hope
Thank you,
all of you
Sumataji.
have enjoyed this as much as I did. And I think we have time for just 2 questions. If there are, audience mic, please. And
Let me just say before the questions
Yes.
come, this is the book, Stories I Must Tell, The Emotional Life of an Actor, because it is a story told from a very emotional point of view. And it's always not just what happened, but what is the process that a person goes through when it happens, whether it's triumphs, whether it's tragedies, whether it's doubts, whether it's dilemmas, the emotional impact of that. Secondly, my book is published in Hindi also, which is Kahi Ankahi. So those of you who prefer to read it in Hindi can read it there. You can also read it in Marathi. I'm hoping to find a Punjabi publisher. So if there's anybody in Punjabi who wants to print my book in Punjabi, please do so. The Italian edition also had great success. It won the Book of the Year at the Venice Film Festival. I released the Spanish edition. And on Amazon, it became the most popular biography in India. Thank you.
thank you very much. So just 2 questions.
Sir, you have referred about 1960s. 1960s in your book.
Yes, sir.
But on the street,
There are, Mike,
Pass me.
मुंह दे कोल रखो.
yes, you have referred about 1960s.
जी.
About the people protesting against the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
In 2023, people are opposing the war in Gaza. And you referred about Beatles also. My question is that how your opinion, what is your about the political opinions of artists? Like lot of art making political opinions and beat a artist.
You see, artists are like anybody else. We all have our political opinions. We all have a right to express our political opinions. And people do. the Beatles were the idealists of the highest order. I mean, you know, if you think of the words imagine,
Yeah.
you talk about imagine there's no country, imagine there's no
War.
wars, imagine. So it's an idealistic vision of the world. And I think idealists should be saluted because they seek a world that we should all aspire to. Artists have their political opinion. They can be right, they can be wrong. If there is such a thing as right and wrong, everyone has their point of view. But I think artists need to be a little careful in the expression of their political opinions. Firstly, because it is a polarizing thing to do. And secondly, these are things that people feel very strongly about on either side. And you're entering an area that you might just say something casually, but might have a lot of repercussions. So artists should be very careful about expressing their political opinions unless they feel very strongly about it and want it known. It shouldn't be just said casually. Because these things, when you're a public figure, what you say and do has consequences.
One very short question, like 1 minute or half a minute. Yes, Shamita ji.
Hi. When there is an actor who writes a biography, the focus of the people or their perception is about the grandeur, the great life, the looks. You've gone through a lot of pain.
Yeah.
So how have you overcome that pain? Just a line on that. And still carried on. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes pain pulls you
Yeah,
down
yeah,
and
yeah.
finishes you, and it's very easy to go down that
Yes.
path.
You know, certain qualities get you to achieve things. Certain qualities take you to a place in life which you're proud of. And then there are times in everyone's life when we have enormous setbacks. Things strike us either at the health level or some personal loss or business loss or job loss. You know, things change. So how do you overcome that is the question. And my answer to that is always, firstly, try to be a positive person. Positivity has a power of its own. Negativity, where people are constantly pulling other people down, this is not right, that's not right, etc., is a very draining thing. So try and be positive. But secondly, remember what are the qualities that got you the successes that you have had in life. And everyone's had successes. So be positive and remember the qualities that gave you success. And that's what I did, and that's how I came back from all my reverses.
Yes, you have
Thank
literally risen from the ashes. Folks, grab your copy right here because you have the chance to get it autographed
I
from
can
none
sign it
other
for
than
you.
Kabir Bedi
Thank
Saab, the international superstar. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank you
Sumita.
for joining us.
Thank you. And I want to compliment you, Niharika, for being such a wonderful master of ceremonies. You prepare what you do, you render it well, and I really appreciate a host that takes the trouble to make a great presentation. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. I think it's a moment that I'm going to remember for a long, long, long time to come, being appreciated on stage. And by somebody as you, you know, it's going to be...
Sincerely meant, sincerely meant.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
you.
so much. I truly accept and all my gratitude. And I just want to mention that the best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. Once again, our gratitude to you, ma'am, and to you, sir, for that heartfelt conversation, which is going to stay with us for a while to come.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed what I shared with you. Thank you so much for coming and making Literati such a wonderful festival. Thank you so, so much.
It's a cliche, but I still want to say it. इनके आने से महफिल में 4 चांद लग गए. And the महफिल looks even more beautiful today because he is here. Thank you so much. Drawing on something that he said, that an open mind leaves a chance for someone to drop a worthwhile thought on it.